Good evening here from Copenhagen, Denmark, and welcome to the fifth edition of Bitcoin Treasuries World. Today is ALTBG Thursdays because I have none other than Mr. BTC Yield himself, Alexandre Laizet from Blockchain Group, and that is the ticker symbol ALTBG. Alexander, before we get started, I want to show you my T-shirt because you are French. You are the largest Bitcoin accumulating company in France. In fact, the largest one in Europe. So I do expect, and I think you know, obviously history. And I'm wearing here.
Amazing.
I am wearing for
Yeah.
you the Emperor of France, aka Napoleon. For you.
Well, I hope we end up with more success at the end, but building an empire is a great idea, definitely.
Yeah, the new empire is being built with and on Bitcoin, and Bitcoin treasuries companies are the fastest growing stock area in the world and the fastest growing area within Bitcoin. So it has a lot of attention. But welcome here, Alexandra. I'm very happy and honored you're here in Prague. You are not only a fantastic presenter, but also you did an amazing job of hosting the panel Fireside Chat, which is some of the best I've seen with Sailor and Adam back. But how are you? Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Anders. Very much appreciate your work and the invitation, and I'm very much looking forward to answer, I guess, many of the community questions that I've seen on X and so on. So that's really an honor for me to be here and chat with you and answer any questions of the community.
Absolutely. Well, since we have until I believe roughly 7 p.m., why don't I would just give the floor to you to give an update on what's going on at ALTBG and any news you want to share, or just like give everyone a feeling for what's going on and where you're headed.
Yeah, definitely. So the Blockchain Group is Europe's first and largest Bitcoin treasury company. We've been the first ones to launch the exact same playbook as Strategy Metaplanet back in November 2024. We started with 15 Bitcoin, then 40 Bitcoin, then 620 Bitcoin, 800 plus, 1000 plus, and now 1700 plus. So we've been scaling as fast as possible, but as accretive as possible as well to accumulate the most Bitcoin possible. And it's just amazing to see in the meantime how much new companies are emerging.
Yeah.
And it's just confirming that the playbook is the best and that how to differentiate is to not differentiate and to adopt the exact playbook and to do it as fast and as accretive as possible for shareholders on the long term. And I insist in this. I think that the most important for Bitcoin treasury companies is to build strong foundations and to build the financial engineering structure that is the most scalable and the most accretive for shareholders. And you have sometimes good months, bad months, but overall, what counts is the journey of the company itself and the growth. And we've been honored to have like 3,000% growth since the launch of the strategy, record 1,200 plus percent BTC yield year to date. And news, well, I've seen a lot of questions recently about global expansion, about analytics, transparency. And overall, my note on this is we need to do better in terms of calling our shots in advance because many times, you want to do and execute in the best way possible for shareholders. And many times, you don't want to also create friction with the regulator by saying something, looking forward statements that at the end of the day, the regulator then says, what is this? And so on. So we are careful and conservative, but we will try to be and we will be more in advance for future potential, plans for the future and so on. The second thing is in terms of US ticker, uh, you can count on us to explore and execute on anything that could have worked excellently for either strategy or MetaPlanet. We have been very clear on this, and we are working on a lot of those programs and looking at the best way to do it for the company and in the best way to maximize BTC yield. And any announcement will be made when the conditions are met from a business perspective and from a regulatory perspective. So that's the funny part about public markets is capital markets are great to access, but then any local jurisdiction has its constraints. So please bear with us. We are working as fast as we can on all of this. And then on the transparency, and the analytics, we are definitely working on analytics for the website and to have the live metrics and so on. And that will be a huge major plus for the company and all the analysts. And in the meantime, you already have great dashboards from Bitcoin Magazine Pro, Strategy Tracker, MicroStrategist, and much more. So I think those are key questions I get asked a lot, and I guess you have many more questions. So
Yeah. Well, I'm glad, Alexandra, that you actually I can take one of my questions off because that was plans for a dashboard on the website. The funny thing with this is, so I'm looking, as you know, on a couple of. I'm trying to follow all the exciting companies in this space, at least the ones that are more than a press release with a little bit of history of success and execution, and where you clearly is one of them. But the what I'm seeing discrepancies, like quite large differences between what a company says themselves and what, for instance, Strategy Tracker or some of the other have as key figures, and I'm just not really sure who's right. But then I choose to go with what's on the company website. I presume they must know the most exact numbers.
yes, it's definitely important. Generally, while we wait for a company dashboard, the latest figures for BTC yield, BTC gain, BTC euro gain, the number of Bitcoin in the balance sheet, the number of ordinary shares, the number of fully diluted shares, all of this you can find in the last press release on our website for a BTC purchase. So when we announce a BTC purchase, we make the whole recap of all the BTC purchases, the Bitcoin on the balance sheet, all of the recap of the BTC yield, even per operation announcement, and on a quarter basis, on a year-to-date basis. So it's not as visual as a dashboard, but here is the latest data that you can count on. And then in the meantime, when we have a new press release for a new capital increase or a new capital market operation, then you have the latest forward-looking view of the fully diluted shares. But then we confirm the final completed number with the announcement of a BTC purchase. So in the meantime, that is the key information you can rely on.
Okay, great. So your press releases will contain even more information than now. So at the time of release, we all have an opportunity to be fully on top. On top of that, you're working on a.
That's already the case.
Okay, that's already the case.
Yeah.
Okay.
The website, since many months now, every BTC purchase is associated with a lot of detail on the last purchases, all of the BTC yield figures, and so on. So that's already there on the website in financial information. You can find out this information.
Excellent. So, but on top of that, you're working on a live tracker that will take into account the stock's trading price, et cetera, and net asset values, which is both the Bitcoin on the balance sheet, but it may also be cash that you have recently raised to.
Yeah, I've seen
Yeah.
that. But there is almost no transition between having cash and having Bitcoin. So all of it goes to Bitcoin. There is always a very small percentage that needs to go to some law firm expenses and the structuring costs, and so. But everything else, all of the long-term capital goes to Bitcoin. So effectively, we are on a Bitcoin standard. And
Wonderful.
so, yeah, putting the cash balance would be putting the future Bitcoin balance, basically. So, yeah, then we separate, of course, like operations and all of the cash necessities there, and that's managed separately. But on the Bitcoin side, all the cash raised, except for net of fees, of course, and typical expenses, that goes to Bitcoin. So typically 90-95%. That's the figure. Yeah.
Okay. Who gets to push the buy button at LLTPG? Do you sometimes go and you click the buy button, or was that all
Ultimately,
algorithmic?
Ultimately, it's the bank. We work with institutional players, and we have processes internally to make sure that none of us and even grouped have the power to move Bitcoin unless there is proper legal process, and there is all of the like auditors or the bank, and a lot of people involved, so that it's secure. And then on the buy button, of course, that's the easiest button, because it's the whole strategy is to buy Bitcoin. So it's effectively the bank that executes the buy order with the under, of course, our own order with the exchanges they work with.
Gotcha. Very well. Thank you. I had the pleasure of actually getting to speak with you a little bit in Prague at BTC Prague, also to introduce you on stage, which was an honor. And I remember asking you about so what are the local advantages? I happen to be a firm believer in there will be at least one very successful, potentially more backs Bitcoin accumulating companies in each jurisdiction. And and I remember you told me in France there's definitely two big advantages for you compared to the alternative, and that is there is a tax advantageous investing into backs like yourselves, and in retirement accounts, which you cannot do with Bitcoin. And also there is no Bitcoin ETFs in France. Am I missing anything, or are these like two local strengths for you?
Yeah, indeed. The main advantage will always remain that a Bitcoin treasury company is basically here to buy you more Bitcoin. So that's just not comparable with Bitcoin itself or with an ETF. In any case, that is just better from a financial potential return perspective. Then it has trade-offs, of course. I mean, it's the whole debate between holding the keys or not, and I don't think it's between one or the other. I think anyone should have maybe Bitcoin and potentially Bitcoin treasury companies to get more Bitcoin and so on. So, in terms of the advantages, aside from this core value proposition, uh, the blockchain group is effectively the only solution in France to get access to a Bitcoin form of exposure with a form of levered form of Bitcoin exposure, but even a Bitcoin form of exposure um, within the local tax exemption wrapper. So effectively, you can, as a French resident, you can buy and sell the stock without incurring any tax within the PEA, a tax exemption wrapper, which is a form of not a retirement account, but a form of exemption for a portfolio within a certain limit that you can add cash and buy stocks. And then as long as it stays within this PEA, then you have no tax on it. And then when you want to get out of it, you have half of the taxes. And so typically people, they just keep this account for retirement, and they can have succession benefits. They can pass that on to their children and so on. That's much easier. And then
Ah,
what's great also is that, of course, many Bitcoiners can realize over time that a major aspect of security is effectively that the time, that effectively having a Bitcoin type exposure with a stock is effectively also, maybe it's a form of diversification, but it's a form of a secure way to hold. Of course, if you trust your financial system at some point, but overall, in many countries, the stocks held by people remain. And so there is, of course, a level of trust, but it's a quite secure way to hold a form of Bitcoin exposure without being subject to physical attacks, for example, or this kind of thing. So, there has been a lot of events recently, unfortunately, in France, and you can say that there is a lot of privacy concerns as well in the EU in general, with a lot of regulations. And there is, of course, concerns in terms of the increase of taxation overall. And effectively, it's not a good thing overall, but effectively, for the Bitcoin treasury company stock, that's extremely bullish scenario, because it becomes the safest, the less taxed, and even the most private way to get, in some ways, to get a form of Bitcoin exposure with the upside of BTC yield over time. So I hope that over time regulation will be much better for Bitcoin overall, and I'm very confident it will happen because Bitcoin adoption is not optional. But still, those are the factors that make it that for 90% of people, it will just be easier to buy a share of ALTBG than to buy Bitcoin themselves if they are used to traditional investment systems. And I think that it's just not even comparable because typically people buying Bitcoin directly, they do it with their checking account. Here, with a stock, you get access to the type of retirement accounts, the stocks, and the portfolios, and that's like 10x, 100x the value of the checking accounts, at least for people. People are typically poor on their checking account and rich on their not savings, but the investments account. So I think that's where the most capital is, and I think that's just not comparable with Bitcoin itself, and it's not in competition, in fact, because the role of a Bitcoin treasury company is to, at the end of the day, get more Bitcoin exposure for investors. So, yeah.
No, absolutely, and I can say for me, it actually has made me a little bit more comfortable to not have only hard to reach, geographically dispersed multi-sig cold storage, but also have now stocks, because if something happened to the cold storage, nuclear war, whatever, then I also now have something. So it's not one thing now. It's not only that one asset of spot BTC. So that, I think, to me, is something I like. Alexandra, what about preferred stocks? I know that's something, not even Metaplanet is not there yet either. There's only one company, and it's the trailblazer, the pioneer strategy with Michael Saylor in front. And they have only launched them just Q1 this year. So I understand probably the ATM is the main driver of accretion of BTC yield for a long time. But preferred stocks, when would that be natural? Maybe to consider?
Look, as I mentioned, the everything strategy Metaplanet typically does, and if it has a lot of success, we look at it. And preferred stocks is definitely looks like a future of potential new ways for BTC treasuries to tap into the credit markets in a way that maximizes BTC yield. and my full focus is to maximize BTC yield. So it makes a lot of sense. Then it needs to be adapted to local, constraints. And those local constraints is that it is not the same to do ATM in the US as it is to do ATM type structures in Japan or in France, for example. And so, considering that, we are a team of financial engineers. The board is literally composed of the co-founder of the largest independent bank in the Bahamas, 40 billion of assets, Ludovic Chochin-Laurent, an ex-president of an asset manager, the founder of one of the operational companies, a tech firm that's been successful for 25 years. And myself, I used to work with half of the CAC 40, the 40 biggest companies in France, the treasurers. So this type of instruments, we will definitely look at how to adapt it in a way that both maximizes BTC yield, of course, respecting the local regulation, and also is adapted to a risk minimization for the company. And I think we have shown that we've been able to do an interesting structure with the BTC denominated convertible bonds that we have issued. And the convertible bonds of Strategy were extremely successful to raise the number of Bitcoin in the balance sheet. And what we have done is a form of convertible bond that is a form of long only convertible bond, so that you don't have the short on the other side, and that had no credit risk for the company as well. So any type of financial instrument that works, we will look at it and adapt it for the company definitely. And preferred stocks are extremely interesting, and it just need to be adapted for the accretiveness and the risk minimized way for the company over the long term.
Excellent. That will be interesting to see whenever that makes sense to maximize yield. Speaking of BTC yield, Alexandra, if I pull up here, so this is Strategy Tracker, and again, I'm seeing discrepancies between numbers here and numbers on Strategy's own website and Metaplan's own website, and also for you, I'm not sure if you consider this correct. The stock price naturally is dynamic pull from the stock exchange or financial websites, but the NAV premium, I don't know if it's 7.71 now or if that's a bit off. Can you tell me what does that look like for
Definitely. So effectively, the BTC yield year to date is correct, is 1,270%.
Mm-hmm.
So that's record BTC yield that we have generated. That's my full focus. And on a quarter to date basis, it's 69.3%. So we've been asked by Ragnar on X,
Yeah.
why is it that you have a lower BTC yield quarter to date? And I thank you for this question. We did 69% BTC yield on top of 700% BTC yield, and that's to be considered. There has been a chart published by Hodl Capital this morning that showed the ranking of Bitcoin treasuries based on their purchases in June. And on the HODL list, on the Bitcoin 100, we are number 21. But on the list of the ranking based on the Bitcoin accumulated this month, we are number 14. So that means that we are rising at an incredible pace compared with ourselves. I believe that competition is with oneself, and I will focus all of my energy to maximize the BTC yield for our shareholders based on what we have done, inspiring ourselves from what the others do well, but on a long-term horizon to build a global empire of Bitcoin accumulation that is the strongest and the most BTC yield maximized in the world. So that's the objective. And of course, you can have a quarter where you have a lower number that another company that is operating on a different time scale because they started in a different time, they are at a different level of operation. And you cannot say that, MetaPlanet, they had an amazing quarter and a year, and they are doing an incredible job. The only thing I'm saying is if you are investing in Bitcoin itself, the right time horizon is 4+ years, and the best one is forever. If you are investing in a Bitcoin treasury company, then the time horizon should be at least the one of Bitcoin itself. And the right one might be forever. That's why Michael Saylor is issuing forever preferred shares, effectively. So I think that we need to do faster, we need to do bigger Bitcoin purchases. But 2 months ago or 3 months ago, we were with 600 Bitcoin, and we were asked to do more regular purchases, which was a great ask. And we were doing like one purchase a month. Today, we do one purchase a week. And of course, it's a transitional phase, I think, for us this quarter, because we put in place this new ATM type program with Tobam, the French 2 billion asset manager, and it's getting started. And there is no small Bitcoin purchase, you know. That's a bit fiat minded. So Bitcoin, any Bitcoin is good to take. And so we will take it. And while we are working on much larger Bitcoin purchases, and which is why we have also the nuclear reactor in Luxembourg with the BTC denominated debt, convertible debt, that we can basically host a major investor at any time that would cover the entire premium and convert the premium into net asset value.
Quick
While we do
question.
that, we are setting.
Sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt, but quick question for the viewers and for myself. So if somebody comes and wants to do a large investment, so are they getting the same price as the market price of the shares, or what they closed at the day before? How is that priced?
Yeah, that's a great question. Actually, it's related to two other questions I usually get. The first one is, do we buy as soon as possible? The second one is, why at some moments we had an announcement with a price that was different than the last market price. And the answer is that we still work with a fiat system. And so when you agree with the investor, we have always agreed with basically the equivalent of, for example, the last closing price of the share, for example. But between the moment when you agree with the investor, the moment when the document is signed, the moment where you prepare, when the bank is doing the operation, where the regulator reviews your press release, where you do your press release, and if you do that with like 5 investors or 7 investors, that can take a week, and that can take a week and a half, and then you announce, and then the price can be higher or lower, but it has been fixed with investors. And at the end of the day, it is at MNAVs of 7, of 10. And so the other thing that happened is, sometimes we made deals at a time where the volumes were like 5 million a day euros. And then in 2 weeks or 1 month, the volumes were 10 million, 20 million, 30 million euros. So some amounts with some prices may have looked at sometimes like a bit different from the market price. But in fact, it was based on the market price. It was typically the price of the day before, for example. And it has always been at major premiums to the 20-day moving average and so on. So we just do the best and the most aligned with the market price. And effectively, like most of our announcements have been at premiums to even the current market price because of the Bitcoin denominated convertible notes, it's been at 30% premium on top of the price. And so, I mean, there are some converts that have a conversion price that is higher than the all-time high of the stock.
Right. Okay.
And yeah, you know, so I think that's quite accretive. Then what happens as well is when you do a deal that is of major significance, you typically agree with investors, for example, that they have a form of warrant that allows them to, for example, double down within 3 months at a certain price, which is at an additional premium to the existing premium. So it's like a 70% premium. And so then 2 months later, it can look like there was a better price for the investor, but this investor invested 3 months ago in a context that was not at all the same. And if it worked, then it's basically he contributed for it to work, and he's adding more Bitcoin at still a major BTC yield for the company and accelerating just the BTC stack and the capacity to raise more capital. So it's sometimes quite difficult to understand, especially, I mean, when you just join and you buy at the top of a certain time horizon, and then you see that someone else got a different price based on an agreement of 3 months ago. You can feel bad, but actually, that was a massive premium at the time of the deal, and the investor is adding a lot of Bitcoin to the balance sheet itself. So just always looking at having the best market price, typically the closing price of the day before. That's also the base of the ATM type program with Tobam. And by the way, we don't even pay Tobam, you know. So there is no fee
Okay.
for Tobam. Yeah. So it's ATM structure, the price of the day before. So effectively, they are just incentivized to do it when the price is going up. 21% of the volumes of the day before. And so, yes, there is a small delta that they have between the two. But you know what happens? This delta, this doesn't go into their pocket. It goes into the pocket of the subscribers of their fund, and it's new shares that then can be used to do more ATM type structure. And so it's just more BTC yield at the end of the day.
BTC yield. That's what we love, and I think you said that about I don't know 100 times on stage in Prague, and we loved it. Alexandre, are you able to do a Bitcoin put options sales program like MetaPlanet is doing in Japan, or does legislation only allow for that in Japan? Because as far as I know, they're the only ones doing it.
Yeah, I understand this program, and I think they have been very successful with it, and that's great. Our focus is 121% of the energy goes to BTC yield maximization with the capital raising and the Bitcoin accumulation. I don't say, of course, that MetaPlanet is not doing the same. In fact, they do it as well, and they have this on top of it. And I think that's very interesting, but we don't want to have hedging strategies. It's all in with the capital raising and BTC accumulation, and all of my time and energy is dedicating to this. Now I understand the benefit of adding new revenues potential for the company, and I understand it can be separate, like it's just a separate unit, and it works and it's great. And it's just that I just want my energy to be fully focused on the capital raising. Yeah,
No,
that's it.
I love it. That answers that question. So before the website we looked at with the share price and the MNAV for different companies, as I mentioned, for the other companies, it's different from what they communicate themselves. So what we looked at before was 7.71 MNAV for ALTBG. Can you confirm that is around where it's supposed to be, or is that completely off?
No, it's about that. It was more about 10x with the price that was more around €5 more recently. And so it is around 7-8x. That's correct. And yeah, that's
Yeah,
about it.
I'm
If
just
you
pulling it up here again. It's blockchain group on the right here, moving down a little bit, and NAV premiums fall from the top. It actually has increased while we're doing the show, Alexandra. So I don't know if this is the Bitcoin Treasuries world effect, but that's what it says right now, 7.85. But you're confirming that this is in the ballpark of correct.
Yeah, if you want to double confirm, because of course, as it varies, even right now, apparently, if you want to make sure to double check, again, there is the press release with the number of total fully diluted shares, the value of the Bitcoin on the balance sheet, and if you want to double check, you can do that. And hopefully, at some point, we can have another call where you display the website and we have the exact MNAV at the exact moment. That would be much better.
Alexandra, I would love that. So the next week for sure I can't do
Yes.
anything. It's gonna be summer holiday mode for me and people I want to and need to spend time and love with. Um, but either the week after or 3 weeks from now, if that then
Yes.
I
When
will
it's
I will
yes,
be I will be
definitely.
back in 121% covering BAC space while you're doing
Ah,
121% BTC yield focus. So another question coming to mind is so the ATM and the program is one of the main ways for you to raise funds. Can you give a split percentage wise, or if there's other things like how you raise funds, because each company, each country, because of legislation and skill set, is doing things a little bit different.
yeah. What I think is quite interesting about ALTBG is that we have basically raised about 80-90% of the capital ourselves. The 150 plus million euros in 8 months ourselves. And most of it is through BTC denominated convertible notes that are like 90% in the money already, meaning that, I mean, the chances of non-conversion are close to zero right now. So it's what you can get as close as you can get to permanent capital, and that's how we have structured them, is to make them the nuclear reactor of ALTBG, and that's what make us a very high velocity BTC yield generating machine, because anytime an investor can come in with a massive amount of Bitcoin, subscribed in Bitcoin, and there is basically no limit to it, and the downside risk is Bitcoin, and the upside is the Bitcoin treasury company. And if you are bullish on Bitcoin, then the chances of non-conversion over 5 years are close to zero. So effectively, just a protection against a potential failure of a company, but at the same time, it's a massive arbitrage in fiat land for Bitcoin. So that's where we've raised most of the capital to date, and so that's also why we have wanted to start to put in place tools that are scalable even without us working specifically, and that's the ATM type program with Tobam. To date, it's minimal, it's maybe 10, 20 million. And so that's starting only. And we have announced that we aim towards 300 million euros of capital raising through the ATM type program with Tobam towards the end of the year. And something that is also interesting is that all of this is without even tapping into public offerings. So all of this is private placements for now. We have been authorized to do public offerings, but of course it takes some months to get, prospectus done, approved by regulators, and so on. So it can also not be approved by regulators, but as long as a company is working on it, it can also work, and you can count on us to definitely work on anything that would maximize BTC yield, but nothing is certain. So I think that's quite interesting, that the company has been able to generate 1000% BTC yield without even fully tapping into an ATM type program that we just launched, and without even tapping into public offerings, and without even tapping into, as you mentioned, preferred type
Stocks, yeah.
offerings. Yeah. So again, it would not be typically the same because regulations are different. But more generally, without even tapping into traditional credit type markets in fiat. So I think that's quite interesting. Another thing that's interesting is the cap table. You know, you have Adam back, like with 20-30% of the capital. You have uh, Ludovic Chochin-Laurent, the co-founder of Capital Union Bank, with about 8%. You have Fulgur Ventures, the largest VC fund in Bitcoin. On a fully diluted basis, is 40% of the capital plus. And that puts you today, it's about 60%, 70% float of the company. And the great thing is, with the ATM type program, we also keep increasing the float while convertible notes are converted into the stock. And then you have the ATM type program that is continuing to add more float. And we have already started to see a lot more American purchasing into the stock, a lot more institutions. We have seen a lot more shorting, because actually ALTBG, due to the volatility and due to the high premiums that we are able to generate through the BTC yield maximization that we have, it becomes the stock that is the most profitable to lend for shorting. It's like 100% plus yield on 1 year, So I didn't think that by saying that I focus on maximizing BTC yield, I would also maximize the yield for shorters uh, or lenders to shorters, but that's what's happening. And, at the end of the day, shorts are doing a public service. They are literally helping you to get a cheaper price while we work relentlessly to maximize BTC yield. So it just that we know that volatility is vitality, but I would prefer to say that volatility is opportunity. And so, of course, we need to keep executing as strong as we have been doing, but there are so much more things to do. And I think the to get back to the question about the BTC yield comparison, it's all about transitions and adaptiveness and scaling preparation and preparation of the fastest and most accretive and durable rocket ship that you can have, but on a Bitcoin standard and conservatively. And sometimes that takes some time.
I love it, and I can't help but laughing at Ragnar is saying you're making him even more bullish. So that is a job well done, Alexandra. Good on that. So you're right. I do remember you told me about its private placement so far, and I guess well, it's going to be advantageous for you when you do the public offering, but why delay it? Why not do it now? What puts it off? Because I'm thinking if you can do both, the engine would run faster, or what do you think?
Yeah. Again, that's, you have to work in public markets with the local regulation and the local regulators, timing and timelines, and you need approvals. And so there is time of decision making, of preparation, of approval, of launching, and this takes time. And so the great thing is, if and when that happens, uh, it's not for any reason that we have asked for 10 billion euro capital raising capacity on June 10th. It's because we want to have all of the tools available for us to be able to accumulate as much Bitcoin as possible in the fastest and most scalable way as possible. And that definitely goes with listed products at some point.
Gotcha. As you know, Alexandra, well, I don't know if you saw, I put it on the screen. There was a French question early on. I had no idea what it meant because je ne parle pas français, as you know, which means I do not speak French. I don't know if that was something you wanted to address or not, but I put it there on the screen.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Okay, wait.
Let me check.
I will find
Yeah.
question.
So the question
Alexandra, vous
yeah,
avez, yeah, and then you're gonna have to take over,
I
understanding.
can translate the question directly. So the question is, you had 10 billion euros capacity authorization, and when do you think you will enter the top 10 with this capacity? So that's a capacity, and so of course that's not a capital raising. So effectively, to enter the top 10 of globally listed companies that have Bitcoin on the balance sheet, we would need to add about 5,000 to 10,000 Bitcoin, depending on how other Bitcoin treasuries are stacking as well in the meantime. So, you know, that can happen in a matter of months, in a matter of years, in a matter of weeks. It depends on at what point we end up with one investor putting a massive amount of Bitcoin either in the equity or in the convertible note, and you can count on me to work on this as relentlessly as possible. That's my full focus, together with the structuring and the launching of products that scale. So, based on the estimations that we have published, because we want to call our shot in advance, we need to do more, but we already started. We published our 8-year plan, and our 8-year plan is to accumulate 1% of the total BTC supply by 2033 over 8 years, and it's to have 21K Bitcoin by 2028, and it was to have 1 to 3K Bitcoin for 2025. We are already at 60% of this target, and of course, the objective is to, of course, if we pass it and if we go much further than this, that would be much better. But currently, that sits within the next 1 to 3 years to get to 10,000 Bitcoin. And if we can do it tomorrow, we will do it. And if we can do it next month, we will do it again. And if you know, so the good thing is we have the capacity to do it. And today, effectively, one investor could put 3,000 Bitcoin in one shot because of the capital structure we currently have. And it could put even towards 10,000 Bitcoin if he wanted to, thanks to our structure in the BTC denominated note. And it could be even more than that. So then it's, not all investors want to do it, but it's possible. And its unique possibility makes it so that as an investor, you may want to look at longer time horizons because in between January and March of this year, we didn't acquire Bitcoin. Between January, February, and early March, we didn't acquire Bitcoin because we were preparing for a massive BTC acquisition that multiplied the number of Bitcoin on the balance sheet by 15x. So while we are working on this type of BTC accumulation that completely capture a premium and convert it into net asset value, we now have the ATM type structure that allows us to do more capital raises on a more regular basis. On top of that, we have regular new convertible note investors that add on top of the ATM. And on top of that, I'm working relentlessly every day to bring a massive BTC purchase to the balance sheet. And I think that's a unique characteristics of us is that yes, the automated capital raising is extremely accretive and potentially the most scalable. But at the same time, if you can double or triple the number of Bitcoin in one operation, you should do it. So working on those fronts to maximize BTC yield.
Gotcha. Also, when we were in the green room here before we went live, and thank you for being super timely, and we had a chance to get a chat, Alexandra. We are talking a little bit about the 4-year cycle, and in it, which is known in Bitcoin as the 4-year halving of the BTC mining production and the price cycle of 4 years it has created. What are your thoughts on that and now going forward? And first, I want to just preface that personally, I think that the best shot of the bear market not being a full 12 months next year is the fact that that strategy now with their preferred stocks, they have two of their preferred stocks, Strive and Stride, that are raising capital, giving a fixed income to investors that don't care about the price of Bitcoin. As long as there's enough Bitcoin that there is capital securing, assets securing their fixed income, they don't care when the price of Bitcoin goes down, unless it goes very, very far down. So I think it's the first time ever we have seen a Bitcoin market where there's potentially going to be some very big incoming buys that don't stop when the price starts going down. And that has been the problem, I think, in previous bear markets, the blow off top, it starts going down, people get margin called. But now we have, if they get S&P 500 inclusion, which will increase their credit rating, automatically make their preferred stocks more attractive, will create a flow of fiat coming into Bitcoin that potentially could offset a normal bear market. But what are your thoughts overall on that and the 4-year cycle, please?
Yeah, so it's very nuanced and it depends on investors' time horizon. But here are a couple of thoughts. The first one is it doesn't matter because fiat is going to zero and Bitcoin has no limit denominated in fiat because fiat is worthless. So, except for buying Bitcoin, of course. So, that's the first observation. The second one is I believe there will always be cycles of bullishness, bearishness, and short term cycles, and long term cycles, and monetary cycles. And you should expect that and you should plan for that. And that's why our convertible notes are 5-year time horizon, because you don't want to be subject to 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years volatility. What we know is that nobody lost money in fiat by investing in Bitcoin over a 4 to 5 year time horizon. So we are planning for this to be long-term, robust, and having structures that align with this. The third observation is that it is, uh, of course, it is observable that before 2 years ago, there was a common understanding that all of those companies in the S&P 500 would come and buy Bitcoin and create a bull cycle and so on. What's happening is that you have 100 companies in the world, not even in the S&P, and it's still less than 5% of the companies that adopt Bitcoin on public markets. And so we are extremely early, but the purchasing power and the firepower of those companies, and including, of course, ourselves over in Europe, and Strategy and Metaplanet and 21 and the Smarter Web and H100 and all of us, we are going to acquire so much Bitcoin over the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years that it might uh, uh, evolve in terms of the cycles we know of, that mixed with the fact that institutions are coming, that mixed with the fact that, when investors cash out of Bitcoin treasury companies, many times they buy Bitcoin. So, so then what happens to the Bitcoin treasury company if they keep the Bitcoin and then the investors they buy back the Bitcoin? Well, they raise more capital and they buy more Bitcoin. So at the end of the day, when you look at the S&P between 2008 and now, you see there are some fluctuations. There are 1 year or 2 year where it goes down and so on. But the chart denominated in fiat is an endless devaluation of monetary power by government. And what happens is that everything denominated in fiat goes up over time. And so I would say that then, with this factor in mind, what about the cycle of Bitcoin treasury companies? You know, if Bitcoin has different cycles, or if they evolve, I think they will already Bitcoin will already have cycles. And what is the cycle of Bitcoin treasury companies? And that's where again I want to emphasize the long-term focus. You cannot come into a Bitcoin treasury company with 2x, 5x, 7x, 10x premium and think that you will make money in 2 days. It's possible. And I mean, we are working relentlessly to make it happen. I mean, if we can be up every day, we will be. That's amazing. But Bitcoin is volatile. Bitcoin treasury companies are more volatile, and the highest the premium, and the less the let's say, there is the premium and there is the months to cover. So the fastest the company goes, and the low and with the premium that they have, then it gives you an indication of the time that you need to wait at least to have the value of the premium covered in net asset value of your share. The blockchain group, we generate 1.5% BTC yield per day. It's 5 months to cover the premium. And so if your time horizon is less than 4 years, at least look at 5 months, potentially. And then if you have a lower time horizon, then you should know that you take more risks. And potentially you will make more profits, but it's like more risks, more returns at the same time. So I would say that there will be potentially a time where at some point Bitcoin is up significantly and Bitcoin treasury companies are up astronomically. And that if that's your first purchase, it's possible that a minus 80% drawdown. And it's possible at any time as well. So you need to be prepared for this. And that's why I emphasize the long-term focus, because we work relentlessly to increase and maximize BTC yield. But I think that everyone should make their own decisions, analyze their own risk tolerance, and not make an investment decision based on risk, but adjust the allocation based on one's risk management perception. And I think that's very important. And overall, I think that the cycle don't matter. What matters is the long-term focus, and how many more Bitcoin a Bitcoin treasury can generate for you over time, indirectly.
Absolutely, a great answer, Alexandra. Madame Daniela Viteri is asking, what is your biggest dream in life?
The biggest dream in life is to be continuously helping and contributing to Bitcoin, and to through this to build a magnificent family and a magnificent company and a magnificent society and world together with all of you. I think that's just amazing. That's a dream that we are living. We can just contribute and work on this together. And I think the thing that allows that is faith. I believe that you need faith and hope, and Bitcoin gives hope, but you need also faith in yourself and faith in the future and in your capacity to just do things.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely important, and that's of utmost importance to make your own financial decisions. If you don't have faith in your own judgment, you cannot make your own financial decision. And that's how you are able to conclude that Bitcoin is the best reserve asset and that Bitcoin treasury companies is the only way to accumulate more Bitcoin in the best and BTC yield maximized way, as you
There
know.
you go. When you say faith, let me see if I can get it here outside the tire. For me, this is also faith. This faith helped me a lot. It helps me, I believe, to at least try and become a better person. And overall, let me see. Is there anything left? I think we covered. Oh, the last point I do want to say is Manny Cloak here who says, please do more ALTBG coverage. Anders, definitely the most interesting so far. So thank you for that. I would love to have you back, Alexandra. I already, not next week, but the following week, I do have at least one, if not two, program schedule, which I realize is not a good idea. Actually, I shouldn't be doing anything that way. So if 3 weeks from now works for you, and we can do it a Thursday thing so we can hang on to this ALTPG Thursdays, I would love to have you back if that's something you would like.
Let's do it. And I would love to bring potentially also one of our major shareholder, potentially Yves Chefati, the president of Tobam. I think he would be a great one to invite together and talk
I
ILTBG.
would love to have it.
Or of course, or Tyler from UTXO management, or from anyone from Fulgur and so on would be great, amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, I would.
And so alone, my pleasure anytime. Yes, and LTBG Thursdays sounds
Yeah.
amazing. So let's do it.
Excellent, Alexandra. Thank you so much for being on. And honestly, yeah, this would be dedicated to ALTBG and you if you come on. So if there's persons that you think would add value to the stream, I would love to have them on. I met Yves and spoke with him several times in Prague, and he's a very smart guy, and would love to have him on. That would be excellent. Well, thank you so much for spending some of Thursday evening here with us, Alexandra, and thank you to the 2100 live viewers. So yeah, thank you, Alexandra, for being here.
Thank you so much, Anders, and very much looking forward to the next
Me
one.
too.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. I will catch you on the next one. It may be 2 weeks from now. We'll see. Cheers.